Hi everyone, welcome again to the Indian Polity Lecture Series for Civil Services Examination. Today we are in an interesting topic on the executive as well as the legislature. So though I was in the earlier stage, I was thinking to give you only one video on the executive, but considering the demand of the topic as well as the length of the topic, I'm going to discuss in a more detail, especially the video lecture number 10, 11 and 12, which were referred to the legislature, be it the parliament or the state legislature. I have already completed that particular topic or chapter. So those who have not watched my videos, I'll recommend and encourage each of you, please kindly go back to the last 12 number of videos to have a better understanding on the Indian polity. Now I shall be today discussing on the topic especially for the structure, organization, functions of the executive and judiciary ministries. In a very nutshell, I'm going to discuss on the structure, organization and functioning of the executive wing of our government, that is at the union level as well as the state level, and I'm also going to discuss the Indian judiciary. Now what I'm going to discuss first, I have this is the summary of the entire what I have prescribed and what is mentioned in the index. The union executive, where the president, prime minister and council of ministers and attorney general. In the state executive, we are going to understand the governor position, chief minister and council minister, as well as the advocate general. And in the Indian judiciary, we are going to understand the Supreme Court of India, high courts, as well as the district court or the subordinate courts. Okay, so as I have highlighted, the considering the demand of the entire lecture, it was not possible to give you the entire details in only one video. So I have bifurcated into three different types of videos. I'll encourage each of you to have a bit of patience as the videos are going to be long, considering the details as well as the lengthiness of the entire topic. So today this is the lecture number 13.1, where I am going to discuss only the union executive. Okay, where I shall be discussing the president, prime minister, council of ministers and attorney general. In the next video, lecture number 13.2, I am going to discuss the state executive, and in the last lecture of this 13 series 13.3, I'm going to discuss the Indian judiciary. So kindly pay attention, and that will be very much needed. So today let us start with the topic of the union executive. Kindly take out your notebook as well as pen or pencil, so that you can note important points, and many times in your examinations questions do come. Starting now, the union executive, as I have highlighted, the three components, so three functionaries. Number one is the president of India. Second component or the functionary is regarding the uh, prime minister and the council of minister, and the third component is regarding the attorney general of India. So first I shall be discussing on the president of India. Now the president of India, there are so many questions that has also been asked in the past examinations, and also is very relevant in future examinations. Now the union executive, the article ranges from article 52 to 78. Now considering, I'll just say what is article 52. Article 52 says there shall be the president of India. Okay, so no matter what, there shall always be the president of India. Even if the president of India and his or her term is completed, the current president of India will continue as long as the new president of India is elected. And the constitution mentions that within 6 months of time period, the election must take place. Okay, so that is the provisions regarding the president of India. Now the president is the head of the state, and he is also called as the first citizen of this country. Now, as we have followed this parliamentary form of government from the Britain system, so there is one difference. I have already highlighted this point in my previous lecture. The difference is that they're the king or the queen. So currently in the England, it is queen system. So she is the head of the state, head of the country, but that head position is always a hierarchy in nature. But however, in India, we are also having the similar position, but it is more of elected basis, which is a very good instances. Everyone can, any of the citizen can get a chance to become also president of India. So once the president is elected, he or she holds office for 5 years. Okay, now he or she sits in the office even after the completion of the 5 years. I have already highlighted that the re-election, the maximum within the 6 months of time period, the re-election has to take place. And of course, there is no bar on one person to become president many times. There is no constitutional bar. Now, how does the election takes place? This is what I have referred to you in the functionaries, okay, of the legislature. Now, again, I'm repeating the same thing. So there is no direct election. Election of the president is always a kind of indirect in nature. There is one electoral college responsible for the president's election. Now, who are the members participate in the election of the president? Remember, always it is elected members. There is no nominated members can participate in the election of the president. And the elected members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, elected member of the legislative assemblies of the states, and the legislative assemblies of the union territories. So this is what you need to remember. So always it is the legislative assembly as well as Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they need to be part, and only elected members and no nominated members. Now further, who does not take part in the president's election? So often it has been seen that the examination can ask a reverse question by not. So who are not basically take part in the elections? Well, number one, nominated members of Lok Sabha. We know that Anglo-Indian community, there are 2 members, and from Rajya Sabha there are 12 members. Nominated members of the state legislative assembly, they do not take part. Members of the legislative councils, both elected as well as nominated, they do not take part in the particular I would say the councils or the elections of the president. And nominated members of the union territories, which means in a nutshell, very simple to understand, only elected members of the, either it is Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha or assembly, okay, except that other members are not allowed to take part in the election of the president. Now, what is the basic qualification? Very simple, that the person should be an Indian citizen, and the minimum age is 35 years. He should be qualified to be elected as a Lok Sabha, which means the whatever qualification required for the to become member of parliament also in the Lok Sabha, that qualification is to be satisfied. And he should not hold any office of profit under the central government, state government, or any public authority. It's very simple to understand. Now let us try to understand what are the different types of conditions. The condition is that he cannot be a member of Lok Sabha. Okay, if he has been a member of either of the house, he should vacate the seat on his first day as president in the office. Very simple, that he cannot be a member of either of the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Now here, he should not hold any office of profit. Okay, he should not hold any office of profit. Now for his residence, Rashtrapati Bhavan is provided to him without any payment of the rent. Parliament decides his emoluments, allowances and privileges. Parliament cannot diminish his emoluments or allowances during his term of service. Once it is fixed, then it must continue till the end of the term of service. He is given immunity from any criminal proceedings, even in respect his personal acts. So that basically that no civil proceedings can initiate against the President of India. The criminal proceedings cannot initiate in the or against the President of India, but criminal proceedings, the investigation can start, but with particular a lot of kind of provisions, or the notice has to be served. Arrest and imprisonment cannot take place in case of the President of India. Only civil proceedings can be initiated for his personal acts, that too after giving 2 months of prior notice. Okay, so this is the basic kind of protection what our President of India gets. Now now the impeachment. Remember, in the entire constitution, Article 61 of our Indian constitution highlights the impeachment term. Many times in media or the other very normal books, they mention that impeachment of the judges of the Supreme Court or High Court. Please note that impeachment word is only used for the President of India. as the Article 61 mentions the impeachment. Now, what is then the difference between the impeachment process of the President of India as well as the judges of the High Court, High Courts or the Supreme Court? Once I complete this particular thing, I'm going to discuss on that. So, on what ground the impeachment can be initiated for the President of India? It is only a violation of the Constitution, and the Constitution is silent. It has not defined that what do you mean by violation of the Constitution. So when a president is to be impeached for violation of the Constitution, the charges shall be preferred by either of the House of the Parliament. Okay, so there is a procedure for the impeachment. Now, no such charges shall preferred unless the proposal to prefer such charges is contained in a resolution which has been moved after at least 14 days notice in writing, signed by not less than 1/4 of the total members of the House has been given of their intention to move the resolution. That means, I'll just simplify it. First of all, 14 days of notice will be served to the President of India that these are the charges. Thereafter, what will happen? That a resolution has to be passed in the houses of at least 1/4 of the total members of the House. Okay, whatever is the total members, either it is in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, 1/4 of the member, they have to first agree that yes, we are having intention, let us move the resolution. Now then, such resolution has been passed by the majority of not less than 2/3 of the total membership of the House. Please do not be confused between this 1/4 and this clauses of the majority. Remember, here it is not the resolution that has to be passed. It is only the members are saying we are having intention to pass the resolution, which means they have not yet passed the resolution. But here, once the intention is cleared and the 1/4 of the members are saying that yes, we are having intention to pass the resolution, then the resolution will be processed in the either of the House of the Parliament. However, what is the condition to the to really pass the resolution? It has to be, the majority needs to be not less than 2/3 members of the total membership of the House. That is one of the very difficult and strengthened process which we are having. Now, number 3, when a charge has been so preferred by the either of the House, first of all, once the majority is being passed, then the charge will be conferred. Then the other House shall investigate. Suppose, for example, Lok Sabha has passed, then Rajya Sabha has to investigate, or Rajya Sabha has passed, then Lok Sabha has to investigate the charges or cause the charge to be investigated, and the President shall have the right to appear and to be present at such investigation. Okay, so it's very simple. What is the process? First, 14 days notice. Second, we are having that 1/4 of members, they have to first, here it is mentioned 1/4 of members, they have to first say that yes, we are having intention to pass the resolution. Then the resolution will be passed. So one House, if it passes, the other House, it has to start the investigation. The investigation will be basically by a committee. Okay, then if as a result of the investigation, once the investigation is completed, they will submit the report. Then based on the report, if the other House passes the majority of not less than 2/3 of total membership of the House by which the charge was investigated or caused to be investigated, declaring that the charges preferred against the President has been sustained and are true in nature, then what will happen? President of India from his office as from the date on which the resolution is so passed, deemed to be imposed. Now this is very important. Now the procedure of the removal of the judges of Supreme Court and High Court are also a bit of similar. The only difference between the impeachment word and the removal word, why we use the impeachment only for the President, because when the resolution is passed in the House as per the prescribed, which I have already discussed in the point number 2 and point number 3, then what will happen? Then the President of India will not receive a separate notice that yes, you are being removed. On the date, on the time when the resolution is passed, the President of India will be automatically impeached. However, in case of removal of the judges, what happens? A separate, after the investigation as well as the passing of the resolution, also against in the Parliament, then the separate notice will go to the particular judge, be it Chief Justice or maybe the judges. Then that is called as basically removal procedure. So again, I am repeating that impeachment word is used only in case of the President of India. It is by constitutionally. So generally, if you want to use it, then that's up to you. You can use that. Okay. Now, Impeachment, when a charge is so preferred either of the house, this is what we have already understood. If a result of the investigation passed by the majority of not less than two-thirds, so this is also we have understood. Now let us try to understand is there any condition that a president's office will be vacated? Yes, there are certain conditions. Number one, the term of the president of India is 5 years. And like for example in USA, we have already discussed in previous classes, the term is 4 years and maximum two times the president can be president of USA can be elected, which means the total I would say the length of the tenure can be 8 years. But in case of Indian scenario, Indian president can be re-elected as many times as it can. Now, if the president will resign by putting forward his resignation to the vice president, then also the office can be vacated. Then remember, the vice president will act as a president, but the vice president will not become president. Okay, sometimes that happens in other countries. The president will become president, but in India, what happens? The vice president, the vice president becomes the president, but in India, what happens? The vice president can only act as president unless and until the new president is again elected within 6 months of time period. So if Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha initiates an impeachment charges, they stand valid. He is removed. If he dies in the office, or if the Supreme Court declares his election invalid, then also the vacations can happen. Now you can also ask me one question, that if the president is not available, if the vice president is not available, then who will act as the president? Then the Chief Justice of India will act as a president. If the Chief Justice is also not available, then who will act? Then the senior most judge of the Supreme Court will act as a president. So this is how the system goes on. Okay. Now let us understand the powers and functions. So I have divided the powers and functions in various types of monuments, like for example the executive power, legislative power, a kind of judicial power. But please note that these bifurcations are not mentioned by the Constitution of India. It is just easier for our understanding, so that we are going to bifurcate those. Now what are the executive powers of the president? For every executive actions, it is in the name of the president only. Now, he may or may not make rules to simplify the transactions of the business of the central government. He appoints the Attorney General of India and determines his remuneration. He also appoints the Comptroller or Auditor General of India, CAG, the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners, the chairman and member of the UPSC, the state governors, commissioner commission of India, and the chairman and its member. And of course we know that the president appoints the prime minister as well as the other ministers. Okay, so this is the executive power. Now he also seeks administrative information from the union government from time to time. He requires the prime minister to submit for the consideration of the council of ministers any matter on which a decision has to be taken by the minister but which has not been considered by the council. So in a very simplified way, if a decision which ought to be taken by the council but it is being taken by only one member, so then also he can seek the clarification from the prime minister. Now he also appoints the national commission of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward classes, and also interstate councils. He also appoints the administrators of the union territories. He can also declare any area as scheduled area and has powers with respect to the administration of the scheduled areas and the tribal areas. Remember, when we are talking about the powers of the President of India, please note, okay, so please note that none of the power is absolute in nature. Whatever the president and whatever information I'm going to discuss in the subsequent slides, all the powers has to be in consultation with the prime minister and the council of ministers. President cannot act alone without and cannot exercise its own veto power. The president doesn't have the veto power to really go for all those kind of the points which I have discussed in the areas to be functions. So every functionaries has to be backed by the president, prime minister as well as the council of ministers consent. Now there is only one case when the president can take his own or her own decision, that is when there is a hung parliament, which means when there is a no clear-cut majority in the parliament, then only the president exercise the real the real veto power. Okay, so understanding the legislative power, we have discussed the particular thing. regarding the, I would say, the executive power, let us try to understand legislative power. Of course, we know that when a bill is passed, basically there are so many different types of bill. I have not mentioned those kind of bills, like for example private bill, government bill. Then we are having a constitutional amendment bill, we are having money bill, we are having financial bill, type 1, type 2, and most generally we are having the ordinary bill. So any bill which is presented, for example ordinary bill is to be presented either of the house. First the bill has to be passed in the both the houses of the parliament, then it has to be put on the table of the president for his assent. Always remember one important point, that unless and until the president gives his or her assent, the bill cannot be converted into law. Okay, so there are also certain bills which before presenting to the any of the house of the parliament or maybe the Lok Sabha, then first the recommendation or the consent of the president is required. For example, certain constitutional bills which are, for example, related to the Article 2 and Article 3 regarding the bifurcation, admission or establishment of new states, or the money bill also is sometimes it is the money bill before it is being presented in the Lok Sabha, then it has to be first consented before the President of India. Okay, so he summons and prorogues the parliament and also dissolve the Lok Sabha. So he also summons the joint sitting of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in case of there is a deadlock. That means if there is no clear-cut understanding or passing of a bill which is very important, but it is not being, basically the majority or the node is not getting ready from the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, especially that happens in case of it is a kind of ordinary or the constitutional amendment bill. So then also it can issue in the ordinary bill, it can issue the joint sitting. So he addresses the Indian Parliament at commencement of the first session. We have already seen that he appoints the speaker, deputy speaker, Lok Sabha, then the chairperson, deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha, and when the seats fall vacant, okay, he nominates the 12 members to the Rajya Sabha also. So that is what we have understood here. Now the president and the power and functions in more of understanding the legislative powers of the president, he can nominate 2 members to the Lok Sabha and 12 members to the Rajya Sabha. Now he recommends or permits the introduction of certain types of bills. I have already discussed those things. Okay, he promulgates the ordinance, he lays the functions reports before the parliament, whether it is a comptroller CAG or UPSC or finance commission. At the same time, this is related to the legislative power. Now coming to the financial power, to introduce the money bill, prior recommendation is required, the consent is required. He causes the union budget to lay down before the parliament. Of course, the finance minister speaks on the union budget, but it is being the finance minister presents the budget in the name of the president only. Yeah. So to make a demand for grants, his recommendation is a prerequisite. Contingency Fund of India is under his control. He constitutes the Finance Commission every 5 years. Okay. So what are the judicial powers he has? For example, appointment of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court as well as the High Courts. He appoints the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court. So he takes advices from the Supreme Court of India under Article 143, which is also known as the advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court of India. He has also some pardoning power under Article 72. He has been conferred with the power to grant pardon against the punishment for any offence against the union law, punishment by a martial court or the death sentence. Please remember that. So for example, many times we have seen that if the capital punishment is provided by the, let's say, Supreme Court of India, and when the person appeals before the President of India to pardon the death sentence, so if the President of India pardons, then it should not be understood as a violation of the order or the judgment given by the Supreme Court of India. It is just a kind of a last resort. Or many times we have, there are so many recent incidences what has happened that that also we can understand the President of India many times it has rejected those pardoning power related to capital punishment. Also, if the kind of the resolution or the appeal is in front of the President of India related to the death sentence, the President of India is also not bound to reply. Okay, he or she can reply, he can reject, and he can be silent also. That depends, that is up to him or her. Now What are the judicial powers? Now, pardon is basically with a grant a pardon convicts both conviction as well as sentence completely absolved. Once pardon is there, which means completely whatever is the sentences given by the any of the court, so that is completely withdrawn. Commutation means what happens with the nature of the punishment of the convict can be changed. For example, suppose there is a financial nature can be converted into other ways, so that is called a commutation. Remission means what happens reduces the term of the imprisonment. For example, for any kind of let's say one person is convicted for imprisonment of let's say 7 years, then it can be reduced to let's say 5 years. So that depends on up to the president, which is known as the remission. Respite means awards lesser punishment than the original punishment by looking at a specific condition of the convict. Reprieve means states the execution of the awarded sentence for a temporary period. Okay, which means it can stay for a temporary period. That these are the different types of judicial power what the President of India is having. Remember this judicial power, though we are saying judicial power, but Constitution never mentions that these are known as the judicial power. It is only for our own understanding. Now, what are the diplomatic powers President of India is having? All the international treaties, agreements that are approved by the Parliament are negotiated and conducted in his own name only. He is the representative of India in the international forums and affairs. Military powers of the President. He is the chief commander of the defense forces. He appoints the chief of army, the navy, as well as the air force. Now, there are also certain emergency powers which is in the hand of the President. Now, there are typically three types of emergency. One is national emergency, president's rule, and which is also known as the state emergency, and the financial emergency. I'll just give you a trick to remember the emergency. Remember, 352 add plus 4. Okay, plus add. Sometimes it's very difficult to write. Add plus 4. Then you basically get article 356. Then again you add here plus 4, then you will be getting article 360. Okay, so article 352 national emergency, president's rule. There are two types of articles. One is 356, one is 365. Remember, 56, 65, just the opposite. Now I'll just give you the brief on why there are two articles for the president's rule. The only differs is the on the ground on which the president's rule is imposed. Article 356 is basically imposed when there is a failure of the constitutional machineries at the state. Article 365 is imposed when the state do not obey the order of the center. In general, we have seen the imposition of article 356. Now, ultimately, financial emergency, article 360. So, when all the emergencies are imposed, then the control of the particular state or a part of the country or the whole country, that directly comes under the President of India. That means the entire country, if it is national emergency, then the entire country will be converted to unitary type of government. Remember, none of the powers, again I am repeating, none of the powers exercised by the President of India is absolute in nature, and none of the power exercised by the President of India is his his own wisdom. It is basically by the consent of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. It's, if I can simplify that, that means behind the people, Prime Minister is the real executive. Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers make the President to do that. Okay, so what are the other powers? We are also having the ordinance making power of the President. Article 1, 2, 3. Article 1, 2, 3 that deals with the ordinance making power of the President of India. So the President has many legislative power, and this power is one of them. President can promulgate an ordinance on the recommendation of the Union Cabinet. Okay, so what do you mean by this particular ordinance making power? You have to understand that ordinance cannot be promulgated when the Parliament is in session. Ordinance can only be promulgated when it is an important, but the Parliament is not in session. When I am saying that Parliament is not in session, of course I mean to say the Lok Sabha is not in session, because the Rajya Sabha is a permanent chamber. Okay, so what are the veto powers? The veto powers, in many books you can see that it is a pocket veto, absolute veto, other vetoes. So here I am just trying to make you simplify that when a bill is introduced, the Parliament can pass a bill either by both the houses if it is an ordinary bill. So it is on the President either to accept the bill or the reject the bill, or the return the bill, or the withhold his entire assent. But in case of it is money bill or the constitutional bill, then definitely the President of India has to accept it. So the choice of the President over the bill is called as the veto power. Veto power of the President is guided by the Article 111 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so these are the nutshell we have tried to understand. Now this is so far we have discussed regarding the President of India. Now again I am repeating the same thing, that whatever powers and the privileges powers especially which I have discussed, which are vested on the President of India, none of the powers are exercised by his own wisdom. It is exercised by the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So there we are going to discuss the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Now the President of India appoints the Prime Minister. Okay, remember there is a question that whether the Prime Minister is appointed or elected. Okay, so this type of question you will be facing. Remember, any position has to be appointed. Okay, so how does that happen? First of all, the general election takes place and any of the party, for example XYZ party, wins the election and is in majority. Then within the party they have to basically elect or select one person to be their leader, and that particular leader is basically being appointed by the President of India as the Prime Minister. Okay, so this is the summary where it is being written. Now after that the President will appoint the ministers only on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. Okay, so what is the elected and nominated within the 6 months of provision? So any of the minister or Prime Minister can also become that means any person can also become Prime Minister or the minister without basically getting any type of majority, but up to 6 months. Within that 6 months of time period, the person has to become a member of the either of the house, be it by the election or be it by the nomination. That is also this is also applicable for the state legislature. Now Prime Minister and the Council of Minister, here also the President of India appoints the, that is we have already understood, and all other ministers are appointed by the Prime Minister. Now here, what are the powers and the functions of the Prime Minister? We know that a Prime Minister is known as the real executive of our country, who has the power to exercise and control over the cabinet, which is now the leader of the country. The portfolio allocation, it is the Prime Minister who allocates the portfolio to different ministries. The Prime Minister is also the chairperson of the cabinet. Okay, there are different there is a cabinet. For example, the Council of Minister is the big one, and then there are a cabinet which consists of the most important ministers of the particular Council of Minister. So Prime Minister is basically head of the particular cabinet. Prime Minister is also the official representative of the country, okay, in the high level international meetings and other forums. So he is the official representative. Prime Minister is also the linking between the President and the cabinet. So any minister cannot directly approach the President for any official purpose. It is the Prime Minister who has to give kind of recommendations or advice, or any kind of for example, if the President requires any kind of consultation, or maybe if the President asks any kind of report, it is the Prime Minister who has to present the report to the President. Okay, also it is known as the act as the chief advisor to the President. So this is what we have understood. Now relations between the Prime Minister and President, I have just given you three most important articles. Please try to remember. Article 74 of our Constitution mentions the Prime Minister and the Presidents are both connected with the Council of Ministers. Okay, so 75 the mentions the President appoints the PM and other ministers are appointed by the on the advice of the PM. Ministers hold their office during the pleasure of the President. Now the question do come, they can ask you that what is the tenure of the minister? Okay, please remember, do not misunderstand, the tenure of the minister is 5 years. Tenure of the minister, there is no tenure of the minister, there is no timeline of the minister, as the ministers are appointed by the President in his own pleasure. So the President can also remove the minister at any point of time. Of course the removal process will be first duly consulted and agreed by the Prime Minister of the country. So Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Now here is a trick. Now in question they can ask you, Council of Ministers are responsible collectively to whom? Are they responsible to the President? Answer is no. They are responsible only to the Lok Sabha, because in Lok Sabha if the majority of, if the confidence is failed, then they have to resign. Similarly, so is the case for in the ministers. They are not responsible individual, at individual capacity. Ministers are not responsible to the Lok Sabha, they are responsible only to the president. 78 article, it suggests the PM, the Prime Minister, communicates all the decisions made by the Council of Ministers to the President from time to time. So, so is the case of whenever President requires, then the Prime Minister has to also keep the reports or any kind of consents. Now, what are the Council of Ministers? Now, in the two articles we shall understand, Article 74 and Article 75. These are very important articles. Please try to remember. So, the Article 74 mentions that the Council will be headed by the Prime Minister and will aid and advise the President. Article 75 mentions the following things. They are appointed by the President and the advice of the ministers. Please remember. Now, I'll just give you a connection between Article 52. Okay. Now, Article 52 suggests that there shall be the President of India. Article 74 suggests that there has to be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Remember always. When if I read the Article 52, 74 and 75 together, we have to understand that there will be no situation where the country does not have a president, does not have a prime minister, or does not have a council minister. Even after 5 years of time period, when the general election is in a continuation to happen, okay, the current council of ministers will basically become a caretaker government. Okay, but there is a government. There will be never a position or situation where there is no president, or there is no council of minister, or there is no prime minister. Okay, so it will be always there. Now, they, along with the prime minister, India forms 15% of the total strength of the lower house, that is Lok Sabha. Now, 91st constitutional amendment provided for the disqualification of the ministers when he stands disqualified as a member of the parliament. Then a minister ceased to exist as one of, he is not a member of either of the house of the parliament for 6 consecutive months. I have already discussed this point. Parliament also decides the salary and allowances of the council of ministers. Going further, prime minister and the relationship between the council of ministers. Now, here the advice is binding on the president. Now, here try to remember here what is happening. You can be also asked the question that whatever the advice which is referred in Article 74 of Indian Constitution, the advice given to the president by the council of ministers, is it binding on the president? Answer is yes. Earlier there was a lot of confusion, but it is yes by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, which is also known as the mini constitution, and 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. Now, the acts also mention that the advice given by the council cannot be inquired into by any court. Now, you can feel that here the judicial review is not. Please remember this particular thing and read between the lines. Here it is saying that during the giving of the advice, it cannot be inquired in the court of law, but after the implementation and after the implementation of the advice, definitely it can be asked in the court of law. So ultimately, when you try to see that, of course, the advices are also can be subject to the judicial review. Now, the principle of collective responsibility, Article 75 clause number 3, where it is stated that council of ministers shall be collectively responsible to Lok Sabha and individual ministers shall be responsible only to the president, because they are appointed in the hands of the president and they enjoy the pleasure of the president only. So they can be removed at any point of time only by the president of India, and of course with the due consultation of the prime minister. So the loss of confidence is expressed by rejecting a money bill or financial bill, any other important policy measures, or by passing a motion of no confidence or rejecting a motion expressing the confidence in that particular ministry. So this is also very important. I have also discussed in many times. Once the no confidence motion is passed, then definitely the prime minister has to resign, and after that what will happen? Basically, again the election will take place. But that doesn't mean that there will be no government. There will be still government. They will be basically converted into the caretaker government. Okay. Now, understanding what are the different types of minister. Now we are having basically the constitution does not mention any category of the ministers. These are only understood from the different types of practices. We are having a cabinet, we are having ministers, we are having state with Minister of State and Deputy Minister. It's a see, cabinet ministers are basically most important minister and senior most ministers in that particular council of minister. Now Minister of States with independent charge and the Minister of States. Now what happens, both are under the cabinet ministers, okay, but the only difference is that this Minister of States, they basically are subordinate to the cabinet minister. They basically cannot take very independent charge, but here the Minister of State, they can take some independent charges, okay, or independent decisions. And also we have seen certain government, we are also having certain deputy ministers in the several states. Also we have seen that there are deputy chief minister, those things we have seen, those are only functionaries. So it is up to the parliament, it is up to the union government or the state government to really allocate any of the or create or abolish any kind of positions for them, okay. So with that, there are also now coming back to the Attorney General of India. Now Attorney General of India, Article 76 of our constitution mentions that he or she is the highest law officer of India. It's like for example advocate, okay. If you are convicted for a, if you are accused of one crime and you happen to go to the court, then you take one advocate with you. So similarly, when government is a litigant of any of the matter, then Attorney General represents the government in the court, especially the Supreme Court of India as well as the high courts, okay. Now Attorney General, other things we have to understand, it is the President of India appoints the person who is qualified to be in the position of the Supreme Court judge. So similarly, eligibility criteria of the Supreme Court of Judge is also applicable for the Attorney General of our country. So there is no fixed term, as because of this President, the Attorney General enjoys the pleasure of the President, so he or she can be also removed by the President of India. The right to speak and take part of the proceedings for the both the houses, he also has the right, but he cannot vote, so he has no vote to participate. Similarly, the members of the parliament, whatever the privileges and the powers the MPs enjoy, the Attorney General also enjoys, but he is not considered as the government servant, okay. So with that, we are in the end, but there is also another functionaries which is also, for example, the Vice President of India. There is nothing much to understand from the perspective of Vice President of India. So there are so many factual informations, like for example the eligibility criteria, elections. So I'll request each of you to kindly refer to the books which I have prescribed in the beginning of our video, or else you'll be also getting this separately a couple of class notes. Now I'll just give you one important highlights on the Vice President of India. In other countries, what happens when President of India is not available, then Vice President becomes the president. But in India, what happens, a vice president will be only able to act as a president but cannot become the vice president. Number one. Number two, now when the Vice President of India, suppose the term is finished, then the constitution does not mention that within what time period the vice president has to be reappointed. The constitution only says that the vice president needs to be re-elected as soon as possible. But for example, in case of president, the constitution has prescribed that it has to be 6 months of time period, okay. And the vice president, if the person wants to resign, then the person can tender the resignation to the President of India, okay. Similarly, the vice versa, when the vice president wish to resign, then vice president can tender the resignation to the president can tender the resignation to the Vice President of India. Now at the last, the vice president is also the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. So when the vice president holds the position of the vice president and acts, then he shall be or she shall be called as ex officio chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. Okay, so these are the few important topics regarding the vice president, and other points are not that much of very important from the exam point of view. So with that, I hope you have really enjoyed the entire executive, especially the union executive, where we have discussed the union president, that is the President of India, then the Prime Minister as well as the Council of Minister, Attorney General of India, and as well as the Vice President of India. We have also discussed different types of powers and functions of the different positions, and I hope that you have really enjoyed this particular video and got very new insights. So please try to remember the tricks and the gray areas which I have shared with you people. Kindly feel free to contact if you are having any kind of question. I'll be happy to address any of your queries. I'm looking forward to see you again. Thank you so much.